Louisa Tuck, welcome to Beyond Stage Fright. You've been principal cello of the Royal Northern Sinfonia since you were 24, and you regularly play concertos with the orchestra. You're an experienced chamber musician, and you're often invited to play guest principal cello with orchestras throughout the UK and abroad. With all this experience of orchestras, tell me how you feel orchestral players in general experience and manage performance
I think
stress.
that orchestral players can experience it in different ways. It can manifest itself in the fact that it could be that there isn't much rehearsal time, or it could be that there is too much rehearsal time and you don't feel like you're living on the edge of performance. But I think that it really can manifest itself in different ways. You can feel anxious about something on your own, or you can feel it as a group, especially in an orchestra, in a section, or you can often see it in the front 8 players of an orchestra, that you can, because you're so aware, or you should be so aware, that you can really see what everyone around you is doing. And whether it's me being able to see someone not quite being able to get the bow on the string, or whether you can hear someone breathing, or you can see that someone isn't physically comfortable. But it's about how you deal with that and manage to get through that yourself, or whether you're trying to help someone through it, or you're dealing with it yourself, I guess. So I think that's how you can see it in an orchestra. Whether you can hear it is another thing.
How do orchestral players talk about performance stress, or don't they?
You don't. Absolutely you don't. There are lots of things that you don't talk about as an orchestral player. Money and nerves, I think, are the 2 big categories. And different people have different ways of dealing with it. I think it is good to talk about it. Like, say, in my orchestra, we do a live broadcast. In fact, we did one last week, and the overture just happened to be particularly, well, I'd call it pearly. But it wasn't actually pearly, it was just incredibly energetic, and you're thrown into this situation especially when you're playing on the radio, that everyone has to sit there in silence while the the person who's comparing the concert talks, and everyone's sitting there in silence thinking, it's fun. And then you go straight into playing really high energy, and I think the levels are so extreme that it's sometimes kind of hard to catch your breath, and that you can think that's nerves. Whether it is or not, I'm not sure. But at the end of it, I do often turn around and I say, oh, that was interesting, or something like that, and it kind of puts people at ease a bit if they know that if I'm at the front and I'm feeling energetic, or not nervous or anxious, but I'm coping with high levels of adrenaline, then if they see that, then it makes it a bit easier for them sometimes. People deal with things differently. Some people want to talk a lot to try and feel more comfortable. Yet the irony is, if you talk a lot, you're not going to be talking on stage at all. And you're going to have to sit there for 50 minutes of the first half in silence, whether you like it or not. But sometimes talking puts people at ease. Sometimes playing madly puts people at ease. Trying to practice those last few runs or difficult double stops, or I don't think it really helps for me. But I don't know, I kind of take myself off into a quieter place, because I think it kind of deserves that. Music deserves that. That's how I deal with it, anyway.
Why the unspoken rule that you don't talk about it? What's that about?
I think because no one wants to look like they are nervous. I think that everyone wants to be super cool, super strong, especially principals, because they get the raw deal. Because you have to lead everybody. We're just talking about concerts here. But in that way, it's kind of liberating. But I don't think people talk about it because they don't want to seem like they have a chink in their armour.
Do you think it would help if people did talk about it, either before or...
Absolutely. I don't think necessarily right before a concert, or perhaps in a patch of work. And also, it's not something that can just be fixed with just chatting about it. I think it's something that needs to be maintained. It's like practicing. I think that every situation is different. I think there are some tougher concerts than others. For me, personally, it's not always about the concert, it's about the first rehearsal. I find that sometimes difficult, but it's not always because of playing. It could be because you've had a particularly stressful situation with a member of the orchestra who's in the same room as you, or perhaps you don't know everybody, or the rehearsal's in a different language, or the conductor's new, or there are so many different factors. It's not just about performance anxiety, I think.
How often do you have rehearsals in languages you don't understand?
On the continent or you're wherever you're guesting, there may be things that are being said by people in their native language that you don't understand. It's like chamber music. You shouldn't really have to talk about all the phrasing or everything like that. You should just be instinctive. But sometimes there are things that have to be organised in an orchestra.
So what's it like being the leader of your section, and what are the particular stresses that come along with that?
I think being a principal is probably 60% about the playing, 40% about everything else. And it's the everything else that's more stressful than the playing. It's whether you like it or not as a principal, you are inundated with admin. And you're not trained to do that when you're deciding that you want to be a principal, I think. And that is stressful, having to reply to emails all the time and be at the mercy of management, whether you like it or not. You have to do your job all the time, even if you're not at work. So like today, I'm not at work, but I have to go through probably about 10, 12 emails, all about different topics, about seating people, doing auditions, finding dates. It's 8 months ahead to hear people, and I find that stressful. But it's part of my job. Having to talk to the conductor, that is always a difficult subject, because you don't want to interrupt their train of thought. You have to know exactly what you're going to say and when you're going to say it, using the least amount of words, and try and make it as... Sometimes you ask a question. This is what a favourite thing of mine is, asking a question that is completely unrelated to what I'm doing. But it's trying not to be rude to my colleagues, but to make it integrate better with what I'm doing. And if you have to use a conductor to facilitate that, you're on thin ice, but that's worth it. I enjoy my job. I enjoy playing. I enjoy playing orchestral repertoire, and I kind of thrive on that. I kind of thrive on stressful situations, performance-wise. If I didn't, I wouldn't be in a principal job. And I think what we put ourselves through as principals and orchestral musicians is very different to soloists or people who are primarily chamber musicians. We do something as a team, and I think orchestras, to a point, are machines that do run, even if there is one player who is slightly down or overworked or tired. The machine keeps rolling, but it is difficult. So it's like just before I play a solo in the orchestra in my section, I may sit back a little bit just to be able to reserve some energy, or take a deep breath, or wipe my hand, or just scan the music for the next page, or something like that. And my section are so great and aware, they will put a little bit more energy in, or a lot more, depending on how much I need. And they will do the work for me and give me the space I need, whether it's a physicalness, or because you can be hacking away or playing away for pages and pages, and then suddenly you have to play like a pianissimo, really high legato solo, and it's like, how am I going to be able to do that after I've just been doing tremolando for the last 10 minutes? Things like that. And they will put in the work for me so they can they can help.
How different is it being principal cello of an orchestra in the UK and being principal cello in orchestras abroad?
I think in the UK everybody knows each other. 9 times out of 10 you will know someone you can have coffee with, it's fine. I've been into orchestras on the continent and it's incredibly daunting because you don't know anybody and you have to prove stuff to you have to prove to yourself that you are strong enough to hold your own. And I've been nervous doing that, but it's a different type of nerves from sitting backstage waiting to do a concerto, because I'm completely in control then. I think European orchestras get more rehearsal time than UK orchestras. I think that it doesn't mean they don't work as hard. They do. They really do. It's just a different type of approach to being in an orchestra. And it's kind of addictive, actually. I like rehearsing. I like, obviously not everything, but I like rehearsing. It's the same way I like practicing, because I like knowing that I can be in control that there's going to be a lower limit if I'm feeling anxious. Orchestras outside the UK have a bit more time to not be flying around all the time. And that's a good thing, and they can be more focused. I'm not saying that UK orchestras aren't focused, it's just a different way of dealing with situations. So, I mean, take for instance, I went and worked with an orchestra a few months ago, and the rehearsal started at 10 o'clock. I got there on the first day. I'd never worked with this orchestra before, not in the UK, and I got there maybe 8:30, because that's the time I had to find the hall. I wanted to make sure I'd got the music right, everything like that. So I arrived early thinking, gosh, I'm an hour and a half early for a rehearsal. All the practice rooms backstage were taken up with people warming up. There was a brass sectional going on stage. I walked past at least 2 or 3 members of the management who were talking to section principals. I'd been introduced to my desk partner, other members of the section. It was like, gosh, people have time to themselves. And I think that's what I mean by focus. I think sometimes you can arrive at a rehearsal in London or wherever you are in the UK and it's like, 10 minutes to go, let's do it.
How do you feel audiences affect the way you feel and the way you play on stage?
I think I've had a job for 7 years and I feel comfortable playing in my hall. It's not my hall, but the orchestral's hall. And you know people write to you on social networks. You see people after the concert, whether they're waiting for a bus or you see them in the bar or you happen to walk past them at the stage door. I know people. I feel comfortable here. I did my first concert in the Berlin Philharmonic in February, and I was sitting there thinking, wow, I'm playing in the Berlin Philharmonic. This is amazing. Different audience, I play in different concert halls all the time, don't get me wrong. But it was a different experience for me because it's a place, it's an experience. I think that it does affect me, and thankfully I didn't know that there were some quite famous people in the audience that night. You have to just think, these people don't know me. This is a first impression of me and my orchestra and the way we play and things like that. So that's, if you go on that side of it rather than thinking everyone in Berlin's going to be really snooty about this English cellist. Do you know what I mean? It's just another person. It's another concert. In the same way that I would go to a concert and see visiting orchestras playing in Newcastle. So you can't think of it like musicians judging musicians. It's about performance. It's about enjoying music together. So, and it's interesting.
How do you manage the whole experience of touring with all the exhaustion and airports and flights and sleep deprivation that comes along with it?
When I was younger and I did a lot of touring with a major London orchestra, I just did it. I rocked up at Gatwick South Terminal twice a week to do sight read my way through major romantic symphonies, and I didn't think anything of it at all. And you fly all over wherever, and you're just a sheep, you just follow the crowd. But now I do it, and I enjoy it, but I think there's an element of being away for a long time which is really tough, and you can find yourself, I mean, I was always the kid, kind of still am, but I really was a kid and everyone looked after me, so I felt very secure and safe, even if it wasn't an orchestra I was a member of. It was a 4.5 week tour of America a few years ago, and it was really tough, and you fly in the morning, you get a bus either to the hotel or concert hall, and then you do a concert, you do a general rehearsal, you may have time to eat at dinner time, you might not, depending on whether the luggage has arrived or the instruments are there, or you might have a problem, there might be a problem with your instrument or anything like that. It is stressful, but you have to just not do it in all the time. I don't know how people do that. I'm not of that ilk. You want to play to the best of your abilities, and if you've only had an hour's sleep and you have to play, I don't know, Schoss 14 as a principal cello, Schoss 15 either, or Brahms Second Piano Concerto or something like that, I know I cannot function without that much sleep, because it's not just about those 4 minutes I'm playing solos. I've got to play a whole other 3 other pieces in the concert, if we're doing an orchestral tour anyway. So, or if it's chamber music, it's just knackering. Absolutely knackering. If you can regulate your body while you're away to make it as much like it would be if you're at home, then that's great. It really is tiring, and getting back into regular life is hard. It really is. You do miss being at home. I miss being at home anyway.
What conditions do your orchestra need to be able to play really well?
If an orchestra's tired, it can be really difficult. Like if you have a split patch of work, like you rehearse one for a concert on a Saturday, on a Monday, and then you do 4 days doing another program, and then go and do a different concert, different program, different soloist, different conductor. You might not even have a conductor, it might be self-drive. But these things all add up to making sure an orchestra has good conditions. Even it's things like having a 3-hour bus journey. It's tiring, and you don't want to be tired and then have to play Bruckner 2. It's just how it goes.
And what does it feel like when the orchestra is playing really well on stage?
It's very liberating. It's a great feeling when everybody is on the same page and you're all striving towards the same goal. I think it's amazing when you do a great concert. And I think it's that feeling at the end of a concert where you just think, I'm not going to be able to stand up. I'm wrecked. This is amazing. I love that thing that when orchestral musicians all congratulate each other at the end, like your desk partner hugs you and you have people coming over and saying, yeah, the section sounded great. And you feel like, oh, I really need a beer now. It's really nice.
Louisa Tuck, thank you very much. I've really enjoyed talking with you.
My pleasure.